sponsor exactly.
On that note, please enjoy the session and the entire Denver Startup Week.
All right, everyone, welcome so much to this session of Denver Startup Week. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm so excited to deliver to you the session called Connecting with Gen Z and Millennials for Effective Workplaces and Thriving Communities. I'm your host and co-facilitator, Susannah Campora. I'm a professional coach, facilitator, founder of Brave Life Venture, and on the management team of Spaces Co-working downtown. I'm here because I'm committed to the younger generations thriving in their authentic leadership and providing brave and safe platforms for their voices to be heard. Thank you to Denver Startup Week, the People Track, and our community who voted and made all of this possible. And thank you to our host, Spaces Co-working, here tonight, hosting a few of our panel speakers. All right, so we're going to kick it off with the slide deck, but most of this conversation is going to be highly interactive. So if you're not already on video, I encourage you to turn your video on and get ready to press unmute. This is a new way of really bringing to the surface our burning questions, desires, and curiosities that we have about the generational conversation. We already have the stats. We know roughly that millennials make up a third of the workplace, and Gen Z is close behind, and Plus is now our largest consumer. But we're not here for the stats. We can look those up. Now it's time for this. For the human species to evolve, the conversation must deepen. And all change, even very large and powerful change, begins when a few people start talking with one another about something they care about. I know we all as entrepreneurs, executives, and leaders care about so much, and we're all standing for some kind of change. And that's why you are starting businesses. That is why you're running businesses. Daring leaders work to make sure people can be themselves and feel a sense of belonging. Brené Brown. And only when diverse perspectives are included, respected, and valued can we start to get a full picture of the world. So that's what we're here for. And just to really nail it down, 2 major outcomes plus a variety of other outcomes, I'm sure, is really our intention for tonight is number 1, to create an interactive dialogue for all here that is open, brave, curious, and safe to experience effective ways to create what's possible with diverse voices. In doing so, we all walk away empowered to bring this kind of dialogue and safe space to our communities and leadership teams. And 2, for us to hear each other, learn from and understand one another, and grow beyond what we have all ever known to create synergy amongst the generations with more equity, diversity, inclusion, and leadership for all people, no matter what their age or generation. So how are we going to do that? This is actually a Zoom meeting, and you might find during Denver Startup Week, the virtual sessions are actually webinars, which is more of a presentation style. So tonight, if you are on, I encourage you to turn on your videos. Again, get ready to press unmute. And I want to kind of get us warmed up to this, right? So if you haven't turned on your video, please do that. And I want you to just share in the chat right now, whatever you want, an emoji, you can share hello, share where you're tuning in from, and we'll just kind of get the chat started. After everyone shares, we are going to share an emoji, which, as you can see, is actually, I think everyone knows at this point, right, from going virtual. But you can share your favorite emoji, or you can also share, a head nod, you can clap your hands, you can make a silly face, whatever you want to on your video to acknowledge after someone shares. We're going to have some prompts where you can share in the chat, so please interact that way. We'd love to hear and see your voice. Please stay on video if you can. Raise your hand to share and share your questions. Any ideas that will forward the conversations. And please mute when you're not talking. If you do want to talk, you can unmute yourself after we call on you. And there will be opportunities for you to ask the panel questions and an opportunity for the panel to ask you questions, and you get to share your thoughts on it. So I hope you take full advantage of this opportunity. Any questions about that so far? We have people still entering our space here and continuing to chat. So just chat it up. Love it. So we're going to go ahead and introduce our panel. So co-facilitating this very interactive dialogue tonight is Faith Lee. Faith, give an emoji or one of your favorite actions that you love to do to acknowledge on Zoom. All right. And we have Andy Schumacher, who is one of our panelists. Andy, we'd love to see you. I can't see everyone right now, but okay. We have Lou. I call him Lou. I think most people call him Lou. Lou Valencia with us tonight. Lou, say hi. We have Nadine. Nadine is actually with us from Wisconsin. Hi, Nadine. We have Tim Coleman. Say hi. Andrea. Whoop. Andrea Cummings. Kind of skipped forward on accident here. Andrea, say hi. All right, we have Jackie. Jackie, welcome. Thanks for being a panel speaker. And we have Stephanie Sapp. Thanks, Stephanie, for being here. And they're going to introduce themselves to you personally here in a moment. Now let's find out who our audience is. I have a poll here that I'm going to launch. I think I'm still on share screen. Can everyone see that poll that just launched?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. So go ahead and take a little bit of time to answer the questions. Should be maybe pretty much 1 out of the 3. And just so you know, the questions are, who here is already working with someone in the younger generation? Another question is, who here is not working with the younger generation but wants to? And the other one is, who here has a brand that is designed to reach the younger generation? All right, Faith, let's get you warmed up as co-facilitator. We have, I think, probably most of our poll answers in. There's a few more coming in. Faith, go ahead and share what our poll answers are.
Great. Thanks, Susannah. Hi, everyone. I'm Faith. I'm so excited to be with you all. And here I'm seeing that we have 11 out of 17 who say that they are currently working with someone in the younger generation. And then we have 3 who put that they are not working with the younger generation, but would like to. And then also 3 who say that they have a brand that is designed to reach the younger generation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we can see here that the majority present are already working with this generation. So we'll have a lot to talk about tonight. Thanks so much for doing that. I think I can share the results here too, but we're not going to do that right now. All right, on to the next thing. So audience, what brought you here today to this conversation? Please share your answers in the chat, and then Faith is going to read them out loud as you type them in, and then we'll have 1 or 2 people share. So why are you here? What do you want to get out of it? What do you want to learn? How do you want to grow?
Okay, I'm excited to see these answers. So the first one from Tom is just curious about most everything. And another question from John, what is Gen Z?
Awesome. All right. We have some more answers coming in.
Yep, we have another one here from Rhea. I am that generation, smack dab in the middle of millennial and Gen Z, and I wanted to see how relatable the talk was. And we have customers that appeal to Gen Z homeowners, so that's also important. And then from Diane, we have, I am here to learn ways to reach Gen Z and millennials. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for your answers, everyone. So good to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'd like to invite someone from the audience to share what you're here for. And you can do your raise your physical hand. I think it's small enough now. We can raise your physical hand. We could see you that way, or your virtual hand, which is, let's see. You'd think I'm just a whiz at Zoom right now.
So you can go to reactions.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom of those options, it'll say raise hand. You can click that and let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Faith. All right, who in the audience would like to share? I'd like to hear, Tom, can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Thank you for being a team player. That's awesome. You said almost everything, and just curious, like, what's one of your burning questions or curiosities that you have right now?
That's a tough question. What everybody's like. I study personality, so I want to know what everybody's MBTI type and what their Enneagram is, and ideally their 5-factor model personality. So that's like a lot.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I do. I'm retired, so that's my project.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom, for sharing. All right. Who else would like to share why you're here tonight? It's going to be a two-sided conversation. Make the most of it. Looks like Travis.
I'm here just to connect. I'm just curious about the younger generation on, home ownership and what opportunities are there. I'm a real estate agent here in Denver, and I'm just always curious about that. I'm 43 years old and, consider myself a younger human. And at the same time, there's certainly a gap between myself and the younger generation out there. So yeah, just looking for ways to connect and listen and curious and open.
Great. Thanks so much for that curiosity, and thanks for sharing. All right. We're going to move on. Feel free to keep sharing your answers in the chat. You're more than welcome to get warmed up that way. All right. Now we're going to introduce the panel. These people are incredible, and they have a lot to share. They're not afraid to share it. And they're also just, I just want to highlight, their heart is just so powerful, and they are all about diversity, equity, inclusion conversations. They are so knowledgeable and also just very passionate about what matters to them. So I'm just honored and privileged to have worked with each of these panel speakers, and just so grateful they're here and that this conversation is being recorded so that globally their name and their voices can be heard. So we'll go ahead and share Faith first. Faith, just share your professional background, what you're up to now, and why do you want to be a voice for this generation? And then you can just hand it off to the next person.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, like Susannah said, I'm Faith Lee. I live in Denver. I'm 25, and I have been a coach. I have been in the medical world. I am currently helping build Brave Life Venture, the company that Susannah founded and is designing. And I'm currently in an active job search, seeking executive assistant positions in a variety of fields. I'm really excited about that as well. And I'm here because I love catalyzing generative and organic conversations in general, and specifically here tonight to collaborate and redesign what it means to be a 20-something in the professional world and to bridge that gap between generations. So thank you. And I will send it over to Andy.
Thank you, Faith. You're always so eloquent and articulate when you speak. I also just got off of another panel discussion, so I'm fired up and ready for this. My name is Andy Schumacher. You can use they, she, or he pronouns for me. I'm 29 years old, and I began my journey as an unpaid intern editing films. Now I own a business called Little Shoe Studios, and we are a branding and website design agency. And I'm here today because I believe in creating a world where young, queer, and creative entrepreneurs and business owners are normalized, successful, and valued. Those things are really important to me. And do I get to pass it on?
Yes, please.
Awesome. I will pass it on to Stephanie.
Thank you, Andy. So my name is Stephanie Sapp, and I'm from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm actually a native, so I was born and raised, lived out of state for a little bit for school, but then somehow ended up back here. And my background is in sales. So I initially went to school for a journalism degree. And I realized that even though it would have been fun and interesting, it wouldn't have necessarily given me the opportunity to create wealth. And so I left school early and just started blazing my own path and never looked back. So I've worked in sales, everything from the startup industry to software. And now I'm actually currently focusing on building generational wealth through e-commerce and looking to retire early. So my focus and the reason I'm here today is just because I'm very passionate about connecting our generation and the younger generation to mentors and coaches. Earlier on, I was lucky enough to have a mentor who came into my life 3 years ago, and I can truly say that my life has totally changed because of that relationship. And so I just want to stand for that for millennials and Gen Z of today. Okay, and I'm going to pass it on to Andrea.
Hello, thank you, Stephanie. My name is Andrea, and I am international. My journey here in the States started 7 years ago when I was an international student from Venezuela. And my work has been very diverse because of that. It's a little complicated to get work when you're studying with a visa here. So I've had experiences all the way from student affairs in academia to real estate to small business management, nonprofit, and human resources. I am actively looking for positions in human capital development, organizational development, and learning and development. And I am here because I want to be a voice of my generation. I want my generation to be inspired, to be empowered, to be seen and celebrated at work. And to do that, I think we need to have these open conversations and for us to feel comfortable with the uncomfortable. So that's why I'm here, and I'm really happy and excited. And I pass it to Nadine.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Nadine Muscovich. I am 27. I'll be 28 at the end of this month. I love October. For me, I am a TEDx speaker. I also am the executive director of a nonprofit called Rise Together that's based out of here in Appleton, Wisconsin. I helped build the organization as a for-profit actually in the first 4 years. And then also have been able to help it grow as a nonprofit since 2018. I have been able to educate, engage, and empower nearly 200,000 young people over the last 7 years with my team, really on a mission to create safe and brave spaces where young people can break the silence around topics like substance use and mental health disorders. And so today, as a wellness coach and trainer, I am looking passionately, on a mission to help others, like other young people, have a platform to use their voice for change as they work to also become the holistic or become the healthiest version of themselves through a holistic pathway. So it's an honor to be here. I absolutely love being able to create, spaces for young people. And that's definitely something, my true mission, like at my heart. So thanks for letting me be a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Nadine. And Nadine, I would like to clarify, what's the age group that when you say young people that you work with, what's that age range?
So primarily 12 to 17, and then we have programs from 17 to 24.
Okay, so would you say that age 12 is within Generation Z?
Yeah.
Kind of on the brink of the next one.
Yeah, it's on the brink. And it depends, I think, depending on the conversations that we're having. But I do think they're just as important.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Nadine.
Thank you. So I will pass it over to Tim.
Thanks, Nadine. I'm Tim Coleman, and I live here in Denver, Colorado, but originally from the Washington, D.C. area. My work experience has really focused around program management, fundraising, and public policy. My journey in my career has been slightly different than a lot of other millennials, focusing predominantly working at trade associations, so engaging with private businesses. I've done that in a number of fields, including the paint and coatings industry. And currently I'm the manager of legislative affairs for a trade association based here in Denver that represents 23 members that provide electric services throughout rural Colorado, focused on the cooperative model. I've really enjoyed my work experience. However, I've oftentimes found myself to be the youngest person in a room, which has come with a lot of advantages and yet some disadvantages, and focused around, finding a mentor that understands a younger generation, how to help them succeed. But on the flip side of that is it has really helped me to find my voice and be really confident in my decision-making when presenting to our memberships or at the Colorado legislature. So, it's a double-edged sword, but happy to be here with these very talented and really inspiring co-panelists. So happy to be here. And Tom, for you, I am an ENFJ. So if that suits your fancy, I will kick it over to Lou.
What is going on, everybody? Thank you for joining us today. My background is in digital marketing for startups, teaching social entrepreneurs how to scale their impact and profitability. And I also have experience in sales within the solar industry. So right now I'm a talent sourcer and or at T-Mobile, and I have my own digital marketing consulting agency while also serving on the board of directors for one of the most renowned creative districts in the US. And it's great to be a part of this conversation because millennials and Gen Z are quite honestly being faced with some of the largest challenges in human history, all simultaneously. And I'm passionate about inspiring and equipping the next set of leaders to bring innovative and elegant solutions to positively impacting the environment and overcoming social issues. And I will pass that to Jackie.
Thanks, Lou. Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie, and I, like Stephanie, grew up in Colorado Springs, so good to have you here. I live in Denver now, and for pretty much half of my professional career, I worked in higher education, trying to connect students of all different ages and races to resources that help them, complete their degrees or just help them in general, through that large process. The other half of my career, I've worked in technical theater, so just running productions all over the country and just working with a lot of wonderful individuals doing that. I currently work in Denver, and I'm an events and content manager for the small woman and millennial owned business. It's called Fireside at Five. And so we basically specialize in inclusive and collaborative, placemaking and community activation. And I am here today because I am deeply invested in this community. I'm deeply invested in sourcing joy and amplifying small businesses and, queer people and people of color. We've got them and we just need to, rise them up. So I am inspired by all of these people on this panel and all of you joining. And I just feel the conversation brewing. So nice to be here.
So good. Thanks, Jackie, for being here. Thank you, all of you panel speakers. I'm just so inspired by you already. Let's jump in. Faith has a few things that she'd like to read from the chat.
Awesome. I am just going to check in. So Stephanie says the reason why she's here is to re-entering the workforce after a long parenting pause. She says she's anxious to learn how to connect with those hiring and potential colleagues of all ages, which is great. You're in the perfect place. And Fran Pope says, I love learning from all generations and want to make sure that they stay in my line of thinking, being an HR person. As a boomer, I find people forget those coming into an organization and what they offer. And then Travis shared about being in homeownership and connecting with the younger generation. And then Marcy says, building a brand with a group of co-founders that provides ladders for millennials and Gen Z creators and entrepreneurs to upskill and ideate. Looking to find out more about the pain points, i.e. access, space, financial challenges to ideate, create, and build in the digital revolution. And then Rhea says, between Gen Z and Alpha, but they'll continue to be important, especially as they grow older. That was a response to someone sharing about, I think it was Nadine saying the age group 12 to 17. So that was a good information. Thanks, Rhea, for responding to it.
Yeah, I'd love to just add in right there. I have a 13, almost 14-year-old, and I have the same conversations with him that I do with my 20-something-year-old clients and mentees. So we are covering the gamut. And I also want to acknowledge that information and technology is evolving faster and faster. And so what I see is that there's a lot to learn all of the time with the generations as we all evolve more quickly. So just something to keep in mind, that we might need to have another dialogue like this in 3 months, 6 months, everything might be a little more advanced. All right, so let's actually kick off our first discussion question. Let me share the screen again really quick, just so we have a quick visual. All right, so the first dialogue question is, what challenges are you seeing for the younger generations in your communities or workplaces? So we're just gonna kind of get it all out on the table, right? So the challenges, think about challenges, the breakdowns. If possible, give an example, a recent example of something that you've been dealing with or something that you've seen that might be burning for you. And just a reminder, with these kinds of conversations, sometimes we're not conscious of them. Like, they matter to us and we care about them, but we are not going around consciously thinking of it. So you might have to do some digging. Feel free to brainstorm in the chat, get stuff out there. And would just like to invite the audience first to share what challenges you are seeing, and if possible, give an example. And Faith, you can start reading chat. And if anyone would like to share on video, or if you're not on video and just do audio, we'd love to hear your voice. Again, this is a dialogue, very interactive, and you are welcome to raise your hand, raise your virtual hand or your physical hand.
Great. So we have one response so far in the chat. John says, feels like there is a need for younger people to use social media and computers.
Okay. And then I saw, thank you, we will address that. And Rhea, I saw her physical hand go up. Is that how you pronounce your name? You're on mute, Rhea. Oh, I think I need to ask you to unmute. So I'm going to do that. Okay.
Testing. There we go.
Awesome. Hi.
Hey, it's Ria, but I don't really care too much either way. Anyway, I guess as a somewhat younger person, like in the workplace, it feels a lot like the cards are stacked against you. I mean, we've been seeing older generations and kind of the things that they were able to do a little more easily. It's a little harder for us now. Like tuition has gone up, the housing market is in a weird place. We're seeing a lot of like social justice issues popping up and everything along the, and then global climate change as well. So as a result, when you're kind of in the workplace, it's like another thing that's like kind of stacked against you, and it's very stressful and harrowing, especially to like, you know, younger people. As they get younger, they get more stressed about this.
Yeah, Ria, thank you so much for sharing. And what generation are you? Just so I can get an understanding of where you're coming from.
Like millennial, kind of young millennial, old Gen Z, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Roughly around like the speakers' ages that I've been seeing. So
great, thanks, Ria. So I'd like to just kind of table the two questions. So we have Ria's, concern and feeling like it's just harder right now, harder than the previous generations to do the things that we need to do, it sounds like. And then John had shared, Faith, do you have that question?
Yep, John shared, feels like there's a need for younger people to use social media and computers.
Okay, awesome. So I'll open it to the panel.
I'd like to address the comment about it feels like the younger generation has a need for computers and social media. I would say 100%. I would say that's where we're at, really. And so that kind of goes into something I wanted to talk about, which is, yes, that I see why that's a breakdown for you, maybe because you're not used to it. I don't want to assume, or you just don't do it as much as millennials and Gen Z. But I want to encourage you to meet people where they're at. So if that's a breakdown for you, I would encourage you to look into the way that you're engaging with them. So are you engaging with people in a mobile friendly way, specifically Gen Z and millennials? Are you engaging with them in a purposeful and meaningful way? Are you using video to engage with them? Are you making a short form video? Because everybody's attention spans due to things like TikTok and Instagram Reels are extremely low, and compared to what you may be used to and what you grew up with. So that's how I wanted to address that comment.
And Lou, I just want to acknowledge that some of the things that came out of your mouth, I didn't even know what you were talking about. TikTok reel things, I don't know. So I just want to say, like, there's with the technology, there's a whole other language that we have to understand and really learn. So I just want to highlight that. And, Lou, I love that curiosity.
Hi, everyone. I just would like to chime in on that too. I think that there's an interesting dynamic here when looking at the use of social media in a workplace. It's definitely, there's kind of two ways that you can look at it. One is, how are you engaging with the younger generation? But then how is that also a tool for you to use in your business, such as Slack or Google Meets or any of these things? So while they may be challenges now, I think it's important to create a workplace culture that allows for growth and adaptation to new technologies. The flip side of that is millennials and Gen Zs, when they're entering the workplace, also need to consider that we have grown up with these technologies and they might be really new and intricate and not as intuitive for someone of an older generation to use. So I think it's really about creating that workplace culture and having difficult conversations around when it's appropriate to use these technologies, when it's not, and how the company and the culture can grow together to best facilitate the outcome that they're looking for.
Thank you, Tim. And I see that Stephanie and Andy have their hands raised.
Yeah, I love that, Tim. That was super good. I just wanted to chime in to what Lou was saying just a moment ago. So I happen to be a young millennial who actually is more on the side of being very old school. So I love print publications. I love physical books. Social media for me, I think I see it as a great way to connect, but it was actually hard for me to adopt until I started getting into the world of marketing, sales, and software specifically as day jobs. So I would say that there's positive and negative ways to use social media. So just looking at it from like an opportunistic point of view, I think it's where, kind of like what Lou said, it's where millennials and young Gen Z are at. And so just meeting those generations, meeting our generation, where we're at, there's positive and life-giving ways to do that.
Stephanie, what would be an example? Like, what would that actually look like?
Yeah, I would say a lot of people host like Q&A sessions. So kind of like what we're doing today in a panel format. I follow a lot of like coaching and a lot of business gurus, I guess you could call them, on Instagram specifically. And oftentimes they'll do like live streams to connect with their audience. So I think having live streams, having polls, opening up the conversation in a way where it's like, hey, let's all interact with each other. That's my favorite way to do it.
I'm noticing that y'all are rocking out the interaction here on this Zoom meeting. Thank you so much for that example. Andy.
Yeah, I'm going to take it in a little bit different direction, going back to the question of what challenges we're seeing for the generations in communities and workplace. And I want to talk about the LGBTQ plus community, as I frequently do, you'll find. But one of the big challenges that folks of the younger generation and in this community are facing is feeling like they can't show up to the workplace in alignment with themselves. They can't show up as their authentic selves. If they show their tattoos or allow others to see that they are queer or LGBTQ plus, however they identify, that it might affect their job. It might affect their livelihood. It might affect things like their health insurance, these things that they get in the workplace. So one of the challenges that comes out of that, the impact, is that they're either not showing up as themselves, and it's not allowing them to produce their best work. They're showing up in fear every day, not knowing when they're going to say the wrong thing or be seen by the wrong person, or however that could go, or they're going to go leave and create their own things. So this is one of those big challenges, is that how can we get the younger generation to be themselves, create these spaces where it's safe for them to be themselves, to show up authentically, and not have them feel like they're living two different lives? How can they be in alignment in their day-to-day life and when they show up at the workplace?
Thank you, Andy.
I love that. I really want to emphasize that, Andy, because it does make a huge difference when someone is being self-expressed and vibrant and lit up about who they are, knowing that their employer sees that in them and values that in them. And I love what you said about an elevated performance. Like, can you imagine what it would be like if you didn't have to compromise who you are or the components of yourself that make you feel best? And how can you like what level of contribution will elevate in that, if that's true? So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, just to really make this relatable to the audience and anyone listening, think of a time in your life, maybe it was like few years, maybe several years, where you felt like you had to pretend and you had to hide who you really are, whether it's sexuality related, gender related, or anything. It's exhausting, and that's impacting the workplace. It's impacting the job, the performance, all of it. All right. What do we have in the chat, Faith?
I'm just pulling that up right now. There was something from, let's see. Oh, Brenna. This was earlier, so I had to scroll through. So Brenna says, addressing the question of what challenges are you seeing for the younger generations in your communities or workplaces? Brenna says, ageism, when my ideas in the workplace are minimized because of my youthful face.
Thank you. And I love that she said youthful face. As we all know, we can be labeled according to just how we look when it's not at all accurate. So just really highlighting that. And I think that goes hand in hand with, what Ria shared, is sometimes it might feel harder. It can impact job search. It can impact, so many different things. So who here would like to share on that?
Susannah, I can talk a little bit about that as I've faced that in a number of my working experiences. And the one piece of advice that I would give is, if you're the youngest person in the room, it's an honor to be that person, and your voice is valued. And even if someone speaks over you or doesn't seem that your viewpoint is worth necessarily sharing, there's a reason that you're there. And that's really important to keep in mind. And sometimes it's not about, going directly to your boss, but going to a coworker or a mentor and speaking about those ideas. And I think it's going to become more and more prevalent. I definitely work in an industry that is pretty on the higher end of the age range. And a lot of those folks are close to retirement and aging out. And so they're really looking to young folks to provide that insight and help change the culture. And so if you do find yourself in that experience, just remind yourself that it's important that you're there, and you're there for a reason. And you might need to push a little bit harder, but that is not, that's what an employer is looking for, is for someone to push the boundaries and push those cultural norms and to speak up. So I would just say, keep at it.
Thanks so much, Tim. And I see Andrea has her hand up.
Hello. I did wanted to talk about that as something that I've seen and experienced. One is this idea of time. It not only does that my ideas are not valued because I'm younger, but also I've seen people in the large corporations that I work with see like, oh, she's young, she doesn't have as much ties, or she has time, and she doesn't have as many restraints or commitments, so just adding to that workload. And sometimes that, oftentimes I've seen that leads to burnout, lack of engagement, and ultimate turnover. So this idea that your time, so my time is not mine, is the company's, is detrimental, right? To think that our ideas are not only respected, but also our time. So I think that to bridge that is having conversations with our employers and saying, and being brave. I know that takes a lot of bravery, but speaking up, right? Like Tim was saying, look for allies in the workplace that feel like you, right? So they don't, so you don't feel like you're alone. And I think that's these type of conversations is what leads to a better understanding of our experience at work and what we can do to make that better for us.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that example of time, Andrea. Very relevant. Just making assumptions about your time, your energy, what's of value, how you should spend it as a young person. All right, Faith, do you want to check the chat here?
Yeah, I see two questions or responses from Daniela, and I wondered, so the first one says, challenges. Because of the lack of experience, there are less opportunities and a feeling of not being enough to propose new ideas. And then Daniela also says, how to persuade your boss to hire younger employees.
So I hear some advocacy in there, the persuading of the boss, advocating for the youth. It looks like Lou raised his hand, and I'd love for Nadine and Jackie to jump in there as well. You get a chance? All right, Lou.
Yeah, just a quick point on it before I pass it off. How does hiring younger people align to what your like the outcomes your boss is looking for, and then cater your message to your boss, right? Like know your audience. And then also for you to go into that conversation with confidence, I encourage you to do some research on how diversity is the cornerstone for innovation in communities and nations overall. So that way you can go in with some strong faith and belief in what you're advocating for. I'll pass it off to Nadine.
So I'm going to go back to the first question, which was around the challenges of like lack of experience, feeling like there are less opportunities because of it, and feeling not enough. Is definitely a conversation that I absolutely love. That's what I did my TED Talk around, actually. It was the feeling of not feeling good enough. And it's something that I think, and I've seen a lot of us in this generation growing up or struggling with, and I don't want to speak for all, but for those that I have worked with, I've seen a lot of individuals struggle with this idea of not feeling good enough because we've had so much growing up of media and social media and thinking what we had to look like, act like, work like, and be like. And I think for that, relating back to us, learning in such an innovative era of how to work with the next generation in exciting ways and exciting experiences. And I know it's hard in the beginning when you're starting off, because I started off as a volunteer at 20 years old, and I now worked my way up as the executive director of this nonprofit, that we started from the ground up, which is really exciting. Thank you. And to feel that in the beginning, I very much felt like I was not enough. And I worked with majority, mostly men. And that made me also feel really uncomfortable as a female in the space of feeling inadequate or feeling that I didn't maybe have as much knowledge or education or understanding of who I was surrounding myself with. But one, I guess, suggestion that I would give, and what I did is I continued to show up. I continued to ask more questions. I continued to stay later at the meetings and connect with some of, the leaders within the space. So to learn how I could learn how to step up. And that helped me not only gain more experience, but also make me feel like I had more opportunities. And as I met more people, more opportunities started to present themselves. So I know it can be difficult, but kind of just going back to like putting yourself out there and, even if you have those feelings of not feeling enough, or, maybe that you can't propose new ideas, continue to surround yourself with people who do want to hear your ideas and keep sharing and keep asking those questions.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I started out my career in an unpaid internship where, this was the epitome of my every single day. I showed up and felt like I literally didn't even deserve a paycheck because I felt so underexperienced. And ultimately what happened was I had to leave. I had to remove myself from the situation because I wasn't being valued. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes it's not internal. Sometimes it is external. And the best thing you can do is take yourself out of the situation to expect better. You don't have to keep yourself in a situation that's no longer serving you. So obviously there's two sides of it. Some of it does come from within. But when it is those external environments, you're allowed to demand more. You're allowed to demand better for yourself. And you don't have to put up with anything that isn't cultivating constant joy, you know? Like you don't have to be in a professional situation that makes you miserable. You have the power to leave.
And to bridge it, thank you, Andy. To bridge that is anyone who has any power at any company, listen here. How can you make your company, your organization more enjoyable for humans, just all humans, not even young humans, all humans to work? How much time do we spend at work? So much time. It's our life. Let's live our life well. And that is so much of our work. So let's make it an enjoyable place to have humans thrive and do great work, enjoy what they're doing. Are they in the right job? Where do they shine? What are their gifts? What are their life goals or professional goals? How can you create a track to elevate that? On and on and on. I could go on, but we're going to move on. Andrea and Faith have more to share.
I was just going to say that sometimes, how do we know that, right? How do we know what lights people up? How do we know how people celebrate things? We ask, right? So just have conversations, right? Like, don't be afraid to have conversations with other people that maybe don't look like you, or maybe that have different interests than you. Have conversations where you can not only learn about what they do in the company and organization professionally, but also outside. We are so much more than just what we do, right? We're so much more than our positions in the company. So I think a great way to engage not only millennials and Gen Zs, but people, humans in general, is being curious, right? Asking questions, being there, having conversations and listening, really listening.
I love that. And I just wanted to add too that along the lines of curiosity and asking questions, being in a workplace is such an exchange. It's a matter of contributing and being contributed to on both sides, employee, employer. You know, it's all co-collaborated upon and created together. And I think that becomes a much more fulfilling and powerful context to come from when both parties are designing it as a team. And that can come from the curiosity. What would be fulfilling to you? How can I contribute in a way that makes you feel supported? Or, you know, whatever the questions are, I think it is such an opportunity to shift the dynamic and shift the paradigm for what it means to be working together.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Faith. We're going to shift gears a little bit. I'd love for the panelists to actually ask the audience questions that you might have. And, you know, if you can't think of a question, share maybe a challenge that you have seen. Give an example, a recent example from your life or your workplace.
I would love to ask a question to the audience. And it is, in this day when our mental health is not only, you know, on this individual level, but I think we are starting to understand that it's much larger than that. What types of issues have you overcome? Has someone come to you with a mental health issue? And how did you navigate that? Did you give them grace? Were you uncomfortable? I'm just curious, honestly, and very vulnerably, of how we all kind of negate and figure out that situation. So I'll pass it to you all.
Travis has something to share. And Faith, could you type up her question in chat, please, so the audience can see it?
You know, to answer the question, I mean, I have a small team and there's not a lot of people. And so it's a lot more fluid and you can be more real. And so for me, it's just like sharing my own stuff and then having that be shared back. And then it just creates like this environment where people are able to just like say what's there, talk about what they're dealing with. And then I'm able to do that too as a leader. I can bring that, hey, I don't want to do this right now. I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. And I can just like have a way to communicate it versus just like pushing it aside and like moving forward and not even feel like feeling it or dealing with it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Travis. And I just want to acknowledge that it's coming from a very high performer. So thank you for sharing your, that inner culture of your small team with such a high performing company that you have. And it looks like Fran.
Great, thanks so much. First of all, I love the conversation. I really admire all of you guys. Sorry. So first of all, I don't know where the people are that are my age. They should be on this call. So that's my first thing I want to say, because I'm learning so much from all of you. And as an HR person, yeah, these are the things that we should be hearing. Reach out. Sometimes there are people on the HR team that are willing to hear and are willing to help. I will have to say in my own situation, I'm currently not with the company that I once was with. And one of the reasons why is I did take the time. I did ask the questions of staff when they had mental health issues. I was the employee relations person. And even though in the end, it turned out that that's not where the company wanted to go, I'm really pleased and proud that I did that anyway, because it was the right thing to do. And sorry, it makes me emotional. I've always been that way. I'm you, just older. I've always been asking these questions, and it's heart-wrenching to see that those questions are still there. I remember starting out, we didn't have laws back then to protect us at all. I remember going through a lot of things that you guys were talking about. I remember being the youngest in the room, but also being very bright and no one wanted to listen. The great thing about that is now as I'm older and in positions where I do get to listen and be at the table with a lot of different people, some of the first people I ask questions of are the youngest in the room and the quietest in the room. Because almost always I have found through my experience that the ones that are the quietest in the room have the answer we're all looking for, but they just haven't spoken up yet. So I think when there are smart leaders, and I do believe I am a smart leader, when there are smart leaders in the room, they know and they will find you, but you also have to find them too. So many of you said it, and so on, go find that ally in the organization. I coach people all the time. That's part of what I would coach a lot of the younger staff is let's find a way to get that message over. Just because it didn't work the first time, let me help you the second time. There's a way to do it. Just don't give up. I've been fighting all my life. You guys probably will too, but I'm really encouraged listening to you guys because you ain't taking it. And we didn't have those people always to say, I ain't taking it. So keep going. And thank you for letting me be a part of this. This is just amazing. And yeah, I just wish more people in my generation were listening in. They could get a clue. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Fran. Wow, that was incredible. Thank you so much for going there with us. Thank you for representing. And this session is actually being live streamed onto YouTube, so it will be forever on YouTube. So spread the word. Yeah, so spread the word. Let's have everyone watch it. All right, Brenna.
Yeah, so this question is so interesting, especially thinking of the last year and a half, but also knowing that mental health has existed forever and that also like other types of health and disability have existed forever. And I think one of the ways, so I'm a middle millennial, and one of the ways that I try to use my power in the workplaces, I mean, now I work for myself, but in the workplaces that I had before, was to really be the buffer between the institution and the human beings that were under my supervision. And when I think about, you know, like recently I had someone I supervise like come and be like, hey, this thing is happening in my life. And it was, oh, sorry, just thinking about it. It was a terrible thing. And like my response, which is not company policy, but my response as the supervisor was, great, clock a full 8-hour day. Do not work. Do not clock into email. Like you need to take care of you. And then I, as your supervisor, am going to take the fall if there's ever a repercussion of you misusing company time. But that it is my inherent interest, I mean, as a supervisor, also as a human being, that like you are taken care of and that you then like want to come back to work. Because I've been in positions where like I haven't been taken care of by the company and then I leave that job, right? So really being able to be like, great, you're not going to be productive, your deliverables are going to go down, I'm going to pick up that slack because I am bigger, stronger, wiser. Like I'm the one in charge. Like I can take care of you and come for you for that, so that you get better. And then when they come back, like I just feel like the relationship that I then get from that employee and the level of work and the like commitment I get from that employee is so much more complete and genuine, that it's such an easy investment. Like you're investing these payroll dollars into something that I think is so huge. And luckily, I think as I'm working on my own things, like I think that's something that we can create a culture shift where that becomes written into policy and that becomes the practice. And also hoping too that like, the people I supervise who are younger than me then go into other job experiences and are like, this isn't actually how I want to be supervised. And so then are able to like demand more because they've experienced more. I think there are times when we supervise in a way that is like, oh, we want to prepare you for the real world, so we're going to like not honor your humanity, when really we could just like create new norms to care about people deeply.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Brenna. And I just want to highlight, to sum it up so beautifully, Andy shared, caring about people has the highest ROI. I'd love to get some stats behind that, more research even, for those that really need that to prove it out. So we're going to call on Diane now. Diane.
I have to say, I feel so lucky to be listening to this conversation. Like Fran, I'm probably a little bit older than you guys, but I think that the fact that you are able to share and talk about just that, that like you can talk about when it's stressful, you can open up. We're trying to make that world of your mental health more important, because when I graduated college, it wasn't considered that important. You got to a job, you stayed at the job, and even though I've changed, but that's kind of was the mindset of the people that are older than you guys, whether it's the boomers or whatever. And so the fact that you're opening up this world, I think you guys are definitely, you have a leg up. I think it's so important. I love millennials just for the fact, and Gen Zs, that you understand that who you are is more important than what you do. So you definitely need to get the word out. I think you should open this conversation to doing it with other generations so they can hear what you're saying, because you're going to go in, you're going to look for jobs, and you guys are comfortable to say, this isn't good enough for me. I've been here 2 years. I'm not getting what I need, and I'm going to change. So I think employers have that responsibility to offer you more, give you more value added, because you're going to stand up and say that. On your side, talk to people, don't always look at like, hey, I want to meet this CEO, or I want to meet this hiring person. Do those informational interviews. Listen to what they say. It's such a great learning experience. It may not be a job, but you learn so much open yourself up to doing that when you're trying to say, hey, I don't have the experience. People hire based on relationships too. If you sit with them and they're like, wow, I love this conversation, then they might hire you without that experience because they've connected. So just feel free to call people up and say, can I just have 15 minutes of your time? People love to talk about themselves. So it's a great way to start. And like I said, having this conversation, pulling in people from different generations would be phenomenal.
So good, Diane. This conversation is not over, will never be over, and needs to get louder. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Yes, share with your network. And it looks like Nadine would love for you to chime in.
Yeah, so this is my favorite conversation of having mental wellness in the workplace. I also believe that it's also really important on the flip side to also create recovery friendly workplaces, which is a huge conversation and topic right now, of being able to create a safe space where individuals who are struggling with mental health or substance use disorders do feel safe and comfortable to be able to go to departments in their workplace to talk about things that are going on in those situations. And I think the best way to do that is by starting a conversation, right? Like having the, conversation, not only the importance of mental wellness or the importance of self-care, but what are the actual steps and tools that people can provide you? Because it's one thing to have a conversation around it today, which I know it's a hot conversation or a hot topic, but what are people actually doing about it? So really, encouraging your leaders and the organization to really take it a step further or a step deeper, kind of like what we've been saying this whole night, like ask better questions and really dive in. What kind of support are you looking for within your company organization? Like do a poll, ask. But one of the biggest things that we have found is that people are seeking peer support. So having individuals in your organization who have lived experience or some sort of connection to have conversations around, things that are individuals are struggling with, because at the end of the day, you want it to be person-centered. You want it to be person-focused. And that's what we've been saying this whole time. And so how can you meet a person where they're at? And so when you're able to meet them, in their mess or within that space, like, Brenna, even for example, was able to do, like, that's incredible. And I think that is more needed and necessary than ever today. And some things that I've seen work really well is actually creating wellness programs within your company organization. So if you're interested in learning more, I'm not going to explain it in super detail because I know we don't have too much time, but sometimes that looks like creating incentives to encourage individuals to actually work out, to take daily walks, to have like a daily meditation minute, to create team sports within the environment. And these are all things that there is research on. And so actually, having team sports like volleyball or basketball, soccer, doing yoga together, actually creating an open space or open concept within the workplace. We've been so remote, and so we've been so disconnected. And so being able to create that open space, where you play games and you do things together, having events, and again, just having that conversation, bringing in education, bring in peer recovery coaches, bring in mental health therapists or, experts that have great experience in the field to have these conversations. And one of the biggest things that I'll share lastly that I think has been a huge game changer, I think, within our organization is keeping self-care number one. And so whenever we meet, when we get on weekly team calls, when we do team check-ins, number one thing is, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Because if we're not taking care of ourselves, then we can't show up for our community.
Awesome, Nadine. Thank you so much. I also just want to highlight that there's a lot of coaches, life coaches out there. We don't need therapists all the time. Therapy has a space, and it definitely needed for mental health issues. And we can really take more advantage of coaches in the personal development industry. There's just so much opportunity there. Faith?
Yeah, thank you everybody so much for your questions. It's really making a difference for how potent our conversation is right now. So I just want to acknowledge each of you for being here and showing up so vibrantly and passionately. And so it's 6:14 Mountain Time right now, and I think we'll start to wrap up, start to close together. So a question that we have for you is, what do you see as possible for this generation now? And this is open-ended, anyone can answer.
I just saw someone raise their hand. So Ria, would you like to answer?
Yeah. So I guess the biggest thing that's possible in this generation, at least that I've noticed, is that we're all very young and angry, and we've seen we've kind of seen all the injustice that's happened to us, to our parents, to our grandparents even. And so as a result, the louder we're speaking, the more that people are going to speak back to us, and the more that people are going to start uniting. So just being able to fight for change is one of our biggest strong points.
Thank you. Tim.
Yeah, I see an immense potential for the millennial and Gen Z generations to really have a lasting change on our workplace and our work culture, whether it's asking for more flexibility or becoming more comfortable about having these conversations around mental health and wellness and well-being. And I come from a mindset of self-advocacy. Growing up with dyslexia, we'll still have dyslexia; it doesn't go away. But really, if it is on you to ask for help when you need it, it's easy to assume that someone else will recognize that and ask you if you need something. But the outcomes will really be driven by you asking for help and advocating on behalf of yourself or a coworker or a general situation. And that can be in a number of different things. That could be asking for tools. Last year, I write a lot of reports. The great irony in my job is I spend a lot of time reading and writing. And one of the first things that I asked for from my employer when I was hired was a stipend to purchase editing software, because that's an area where I struggle with. So I asked them and they said yes. And, we haven't really that hasn't come up in my year reviews and whatnot. And so it's been a really helpful tool, but without me asking for that help, I would not have received that tool. And so I think that as our generations become more and more confident and comfortable with themselves, that conversation is going to continue and build upon each other, and also have folks that are listening to them and have been through that struggle before. So, I would just say I'm really excited about the opportunity that our generations are pushing forward with, and without self-advocacy, we will not get there.
Thank you so much, Tim. Jackie?
Yes, Tim. Oh, these are all such great answers. I think something that our generation is really pushing, and it always has been a push, as Fran mentioned, but I think it's about changing the power dynamics. We've talked around it. I think a lot of us have mentioned it in so many different ways, but if there are not people of color in the panel, in the decision room, if there are not queer people in the panel, in the decision room, people with disabilities of all different types, then it's just not going anywhere, right? I think that accountability in those ways is what's going to push us further, not just socially and emotionally, but with our innovations that we have to have. The best ideas exist already. Every solution, to our problems, it exists. We just have to listen for it, right? That's us, guys. That's us.
Amazing. Thanks, Jackie. All right, Andy.
Oh, Jackie, you just nailed it right on the head. I was just going to say that everything is possible because we are going through a shift. We are going to be the next older generation. And with that comes an entire shift in social capital, decision-making, power, leadership roles. And we are the individuals and the types of humans who are stepping up into these roles. So we get to decide. And this conversation and things like this are showing us all that we're not afraid to talk about it. We're not afraid to collaborate on it. And we're not afraid to do it with love. We're not afraid to come at it from we want to take care of each other. We want to build community, and we want to create a loving world for the future. And that's what's going to happen because we want it to.
Mic drop. Okay, let's just really get all of our acknowledgments going. There's so many amazing things where everyone who shares for the rest of this time, we have 11 more minutes. We're gonna just acknowledge, go crazy for everyone. All right, Lou.
Okay, so I'm going to acknowledge, first I'm going to acknowledge Fran, you're right there on my screen. You absolutely killed it. Like when you said, you know, I'm you, but older, that's something I really want to put under a microscope for all of us to think about, is that we're all human beings. And if you really sit back and think about it, a lot of us have a lot of the same experiences, a lot of the same struggles, and we truly do have more in common than we do that separates us, even if mostly what we're taught to look at is our differences, right? So one of the only other things that I want to acknowledge is that what I see possible for the world is that my favorite Martin Luther King quote. So injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So anywhere in social issues or environmental, if you see that something is wrong, then another Martin Luther King quote, if you see evil and you do nothing to do it, you are the accomplice of evil because you saw it and then you let it happen. So be brave, be bold, acknowledge when you're having to break down and you don't want to step up to the plate for whatever reason, you're going to be judged, or you don't want to look bad because you stutter. Like I've stuttered so many times on here. So it's okay to be afraid, acknowledge it for what it is, be bold and be confident and do it anyway.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lou. And Ande, I saw your hand up. You dive in?
Oh, I wanted to see what Fran wanted to say. She did it first.
All right, handing it back to Fran. Fran.
You're too funny. You're too funny. Thank you. So, you know, one of my favorite quotes was actually something I heard, I think a couple years back, that's not even attributed to anybody. It was a combination of friends and I all put it together one day, and I use it in every seminar that I teach. And it's everything you do and everything you don't do makes a difference. That includes if you don't speak up, that made a difference. If you do speak up, that made a difference. And even if it's for you that it made a difference, you go to your grave knowing you made a difference. And it's probably from working with a lot of hospice patients in my past. I learned at age 18 very quickly that I wanted to make a difference with everybody I cross paths with. It's a great mission to have. And just remember, everything you do and everything you don't do makes a difference. Make sure it's something that you're proud of when you get to be closer to my age and you can look back, for one, but also don't ever lose your voice. It does get tough sometimes and it does get tiring. Have people in your corner that can support you, that will remind you, maybe take a risk, but don't give up. And use that anger. I think Ria mentioned it and I loved it. Use that anger, take the rest, but use that anger to keep having the voice and to educate those around you and the next generation, and to tell and help other people to understand how to help you. You guys mentioned it earlier. I think Tim said it, is not everybody knows how to help you. Sometimes you have to help them to understand how to help you.
So good.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Fran. Amazing. So, let's just say younger generation, self-advocating, loud voice, action, taking action, not putting up with the things that don't work, humanizing everything. What's possible for the whole world? What's the impact on everyone if the younger generation are empowered? Right now, not like 10 years from now. Policy changes within corporations or organizations, there's changes. Maybe that's a good one to just sleep on, but I see Andrea, go ahead.
Yeah. I kind of don't want to say it, but do want to say it, anything. anything is possible. I think Andy said it earlier, when we are in our power, when we are ourselves and we feel seen, celebrated, empowered, we do that to others. So younger generations, younger than ours, right, can be seen that example of feeling empowered and in your power, and anything is possible. It's like the trickle effect, right? So yeah, I just want to acknowledge everyone to be here, but I also wanted to close my share with going back to having conversations. I think also Lou said that, you know, when we think, we can all relate to when we were younger, right? If you're older, you can relate to when you were younger. Think about those things that you maybe gave up, things that happened to you when you were younger, and connect with them, connect with the younger generation through that, right? We can all find things that we can relate to, and that's how we build community, and that's how we build stronger generations and stronger organizations, and how we make it all possible. So
thank you, Andrea. Beautiful. Woo. All right, Faith.
Thank you. The first word that came to mind when you said that was movement. I think an impact of stepping into a new conversation is that things shift, or have the ability to shift. And I think the world is calling on us, all of us in all generations, to act and to move, because things are happening in a, like, it can be scary what's happening to the world. And there's a call for us to answer and to listen to. And I think that starts with us. That starts with conversations like these and carrying them forward.
Amazing. I think Brene Brown would be really proud of us right now. Let's show her this video. So with that, there's a lot of inspiration, a lot of empowerment, a lot of speak of action. So I'd like for everyone on this call, put in the chat at least one action that you can take in your life from this conversation. So at least one action that you can take from this conversation. Faith, I'd love for you to read them out loud as they're being typed in. And if anyone wants to share anything, any ideas burning right now, we have Cliff Notes being given to the rest of her company. I love that, Ria. Thank you so much. All right, Faith.
Jackie says, always ask the quietest person in the room their ideas, from Fran's share. And from Tim, to help others find their voice. Yeah. Conversations with people who are older, younger, with different viewpoints than yours, etc. in short, challenging conversations. Yeah, I love that boldness. Lead by example by speaking openly about health and wellness. Love that. Fran says, having a conversation tomorrow with older networking group to tell them how awesome you guys are. I can't wait to work with younger people again. Great, Fran, thank you. Yeah, host and facilitate more of these conversations, Susannah, absolutely. Incredible host. Do not stop talking about the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Momentum, yes. Make space for the younger generation to step into their power. Speak openly about diversity in your workspace too. People of color, women, LGBTQ. Host these conversations on a one-to-one basis on TikTok Lives. Love that, Lou. I love that specificity. It's so helpful to get detailed about what actions to take. I love it. And from Diane, help the younger generations feel comfortable reaching out to older generations. Yes, be a conduit. I love that. Great. Anyone else?
All right, we have about 1 minute. I'd love to just ask the panel to share any last words.
Thank you, everybody, for your vulnerability, your transparency, your honesty, and sharing your very raw experiences with one another, and committing to a new future and a new world, empowering everybody. right? So thank you, literally all of you. Thank you so much.
I dropped it in the chat, but I think it's very powerful to say we cannot do all of the good that the world needs, but all of the good that we can do is what the world needs to.
Such an honor to share this space with you. I now pronounce the closure of this most amazing dialogue. Please share the link on YouTube, share all over social media. Let's make our voices louder. And as a takeaway, I just put in the chat a poem by Margaret Wheatley, who had a lot to say about what matters to us. And it's such a great takeaway to take back to your organizations, your groups, and your leadership, something I marinate on all the time. So feel free to copy and paste that and enjoy. And until next time, we'll see you all later. Thank you all panelists, the People Track, Denver Startup Week, and for technology for making this possible around the world.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.